Hello and welcome to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360, Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. And please rate and review the show. I'm your host, Wayne Liu. And today, Alex is still sick. It's all good. Alex, get well soon. Hopefully this doesn't interrupt your holiday plans, which are probably to see your dad for like 3-4 days straight as you guys probably play golf and I don't know, do car stuff. But yeah, in the meantime, we have Big V in the studio. The World Cup is over, which means we can finally get you back. What's going on, V? How you doing, man?
Nothing much. A little bit of World Cup withdrawal.
A lot of it. I'm not going to lie to you, man. I think about the World Cup every day. It was so good.
But the crazy part is EPL, everything is going to be right back.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's not like we're going to miss much soccer, but it was nice to see a Raptors win. That kind of helps with the withdrawals.
Oh, my God. I was going to say, the drop-off from going to see, like, Messi to, like, seeing, like, Malachi was a little stark at times, despite how well Malachi was playing. You know, I just think Messi proved himself as the GOAT, and I know that Derek is in the back just fuming at this conversation right now. I know he's it's over for him in the debates, unfortunately. It's over. You know, I think Seven's just going to have to be number 2 on this one.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's talk about the Toronto Raptors, who finally got a win last night. I mean, I don't remember ever feeling that good after a win over the Knicks. I remember DeMar hit a game winner against the Knicks one time, and he was kind of skipping and all that kind of stuff. That was great. That was my previously, high moment against the Knicks. I know the Raptors beat the Knicks back before I started watching the Raptors and in the playoffs, and there was all that. But what Pascal Siakam did last night, the dominance, the intensity from start to finish, the fact that he finished with 52 points in the Garden. Big V, talk to me about Pascal Siakam.
Bing bong.
That's what Pascal was saying.
That is what he was saying. But I mean, he was just so comfortable getting to wherever he wanted against whoever he wanted.
Yeah.
Like when I went back and watched that third quarter run where he scored 17 straight points, literally they had Mitchell Robinson on him, Julius Randle on him, Jalen Brunson on him.
Okay, that's a mismatch.
RJ Barrett.
That's a mismatch.
Jericho Sims.
That's a mismatch.
And none of it worked, right? Like Tom Thibodeau was like, someone, please, anyone. And Pascal was just like, bucket, bucket, bucket.
Yep. And look, I think with Pascal too, it was just like, it's the determination. I mean, he got to the free throw line 18 times.
Yeah.
I don't remember another Raptor getting to the free throw line 18 times, like, ever. I mean, I really have to look through some of the databases to see if that's happened before. But, you know, I saw a lot of Knicks fans complaining. To me, I'm just like, first off, the refereeing was pretty even until intentional fouling, which it gave the Raptors an extra 2 free throws because the Knicks wanted to extend the game. You take those 2 out, the Raptors had 20 free throws. The Knicks had 18 free throws. I don't see any real reason to complain. It's not like the Raptors are getting calls across the board. I just saw the Knicks unable to guard Pascal Siakam. You know, it's funny because the last 2 games now, he's got 90 points. Both teams in the Sixers and the Knicks have been playing good defense of late, too. They both have pretty good rim protection when you really think about it. And obviously, Pascal's primary way of scoring is in the paint. Why is it that he's been so effective despite that?
For me, it's because he's knocking down the mid-range jumper. Right?
Okay.
It's
so
like
the face-up game is just
that's
too
the
good.
one thing that opposing teams have been willing to give up. And now it's like, oh, okay, he's knocking that down too. I got to push up on him a bit more. Okay, well, now you're going to push up. Now he's going to go right past you. And that's when the help comes, the defense collapses. Sometimes he's able to get all the way to the bucket. If not, he's able to kick it out for an open shot. Whether they're being knocked down or not is a different matter. But, I mean, if we're being real now, Pascal's at about 7 assists a game for the season.
Yep.
Like, if guys were shooting the way, especially the top guys that you usually expect to shoot better from outside, he'd be closer to 8.5 assists. Yeah. And this is looking, even more of a special season than it already is. But I think last night, it's kind of funny because you think about, the 36 he had against Brooklyn, and they lost. The 36 he had against Orlando, lost.
Yep.
38 against Philly the other night, lost. And he was like, all right, well, that's not enough. Instead of being discouraged and being like, oh my God, what do I have to do? It's like, okay, fine. That wasn't enough. I'll go drop 50.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that you said that too, because it's like with Pascal, one of the things with him this year, you could notice it even just in him talking the media scrums and stuff like that. There's an air of positivity about him. There's a confidence about him. He feels like a guy to me who has gone through a lot of struggles in life, and we can cover those on court, off court, stuff that was out of bounds, stuff that was in bounds, but whatever, right? Ultimately, he went through a ton, and the product you see on the floor today is a guy who has gotten through that, has a clarity about it, and as he is fond of saying, he's literally just here to hoop, right? He's just here to hoop. It doesn't matter. Like, if the circumstances are against him, it doesn't matter. If, like, he's out there at the start of the second quarter, and it's him, Malachi, Thad, Christian Coloco, and Chris Boucher, it doesn't matter, right? What did KD say in that quote about Edmund Sumner and his teammates? He's like, the reason you expect my team to win is because I'm out there. That's exactly what Pascal's saying. You know what? Those guys aren't really guys on my level, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to make sure that I can carry them. And I thought that start of the second quarter there was a statement of intent from Pascal, where it was like, yeah, I'm out here with the bench unit. I have to carry these guys. They're probably not going to score much for me, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to get to my spots. I'm still going to find Malachi for 3 when he's open. I'm still going to find guys on cuts on whatever if they're available. But mostly, I'm going to have to carry this group. And he just showed that determination that you want to see from him. Listen, the Raptors are in a rough spot. It's going to take something truly, truly special to pull them out of it. And that's what Pascal was hell-bent on delivering. I mean, 9 points in the first, 17 in the second, 17 in the third, 9 in the fourth. And, of course, the extra buckets at the end there to get to 50+. That was important accounting, too, because, it was strange. I didn't think that Pascal got the ball enough in the fourth quarter. I don't know about you.
No, he didn't.
He only got the ball twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
why? Why? No, but actually, why?
No, it was just strange to see, right? I mean, the Raptors were being very slow in getting to their sets, and then all of a sudden you look up and there's 5 on the clock, and whoever's got the ball has got to get a shot up, right? We saw, there's definitely that one possession where Fred gets into a double team, but still kind of forces up the shot. That's something that you don't want to see. And then late clock, there's a corner 3, Wancho, I believe. And so you're just getting forced into a lot of late clock scenarios, trying to run your stuff, and that's got to just be a lot cleaner.
Yep.
But what I loved about Pascal's motivation in this game was that it was all about making this team feel better about themselves. Like, when he spoke after the game, this is what he said: wanting to get a win and make sure we get back on the right track. Those guys out there are special. And I just feel like everyone needed that moment, everyone being happy for each other. We haven't had that opportunity for a little bit, so it felt good.
Yeah. So it's about the team. It's about the group,
This isn't even,
Man.
Hey, look at me. I dropped 50 at MSG.
Yeah.
Only superstars do that.
Bro, the list is literally like genuinely all superstars.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Rip Hamilton randomly did it once. But, I mean, listen, Rip was a champion. No slander to Rip Hamilton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think he is sort of this beacon of light for the team, and everyone is really rallying around him.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a moment for them to take that inspiration and really bring it to the court consistently.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When you look at who has been the most consistent this season, it's been Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby.
Yep.
Right? And now it's really time for the rest of the guys to get in line. Scottie Barnes, Fred VanVleet, everyone down the line, right? And, hopefully, Precious Achiuwa comes back healthy.
He would be a pretty big piece. A lot of these games, I really missed him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they can cobble something together. At the end of the day, the weaknesses of this roster have been exposed, and help is needed.
Mm-hmm.
But for right now, that attitude that you mentioned about Pascal, looking at what's on the court and saying, hey, doesn't matter, we got to find a way. All his teammates need to be saying that right now.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you, man. I think that's what you want to see from your leader, too, is that setting that example. Listen, obviously not every game's going to go your way, but you can never disengage from the game, right? You got to bring what you have to the game. What I really liked from last night's game, I love seeing Malachi with his contributions, right? I mean, Malachi went from DNPs to now closing out games night after night, and he's out there blocking Emmanuel quickly on a very, very tough shot with the game, like, still in the balance, right? It's a 4-point game with 1 minute left. You jump up to block a 3-point shooter. You mistime that at all, and you foul him, and you put him on the 3-point line, you change the game entirely. You swing the whole momentum. Instead, Malachi comes up with a clutch block. He's giving you what he can. Juancho's giving you what he can, right, with all the extra cutting. I mean, Nick Nurse started the game in a box and one. It was a box and Juan. With Juancho, I still won. I'm sorry. I've already used that joke once, but it is quite good, in my opinion. But he's giving you his hustle plays. Thad Young's giving his hustle plays. He's the oldest player on the court. He's giving you 3 offensive rebounds, and he's tapping, the extra possessions out. He's making extra plays. Christian Coloco goes from a DMP, comes in, doesn't play the second half either, but first half when he did play, did a good job of shutting off the paint, allowing for the Raptors to get out on the break, and then Pascal was able to carry the scoring for that second group. I just need everyone to come in and just, like, deliver what they can. Right now they're in a tough moment, but kind of following that lead. You have a guy like Pascal who's clearly trying to lead you, see how you can sort of follow in his steps. And I thought, you know what? I want to have this conversation with you too. What did you make of Nick Nurse's coaching decisions last night? Because Nick has caught a ton of flack of late, as any coach would when their team starts to lose, right? Obviously, the expectations are for this team to perform better. Its players are more talented than what they're showing, and we instinctively blame the coach. What did you make of Nick Nurse's coaching decisions last night? Because I thought he did a really great job.
Yeah, he did a really good job. I thought, even coming out with the box and one right out the gate, saying
very innovative.
Yeah, and you're sort of putting that challenge to the players and saying, hey, we're gonna do something different right out of the gate, right? And so get out of your comfort zone, wherever that might be, and you're gonna have to be really in tune to start this game. And we saw that, and I think if you are gonna criticize and nitpick a little bit, it's probably the third quarter, the way the Knicks got back into it. Maybe there's a timeout that you can take earlier. Maybe there's changes that you make earlier. The fourth, there was that stretch where, obviously OG needed a bit of a breather, and that's why he comes out. But maybe on this night, Scottie Barnes was not the guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think in terms of the big picture coaching, because that's more of a micro decision, right?
Right.
But big picture coaching, of course, you give him a chance
to
redeem himself.
Yeah.
Because he's still one of your best players. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Got to give him that chance. But, of course, you got to come in and deliver on that chance, right? The mixed box out.
Exactly.
On Randall, the really bad closeout against Quickly to knock down a 3. Like, that turned it from a 3-possession game to a 1-possession game.
Yeah. And so those are the things that you would nitpick at within the game. But big picture, I think on a night like this, you got to recognize that Pascal's got it. And so you ride that. And then those plug-and-play options, it's like, hey, where can I get what I need? You mentioned Malachi coming in, giving you what you need for a little bit. Coloco coming in, giving you what you need for a little bit. Juancho, his hustle, his smarts, his ability to, stay even-keeled within plays. There was one play that I found really impressive where Pascal had the ball at the top, and Juancho's man had helped off. And there was twice where Juancho really wanted the ball for a catch and shoot.
Yep.
And Pascal didn't pass it to him. And Juancho's not just like, oh, okay, I didn't get the ball. Pascal creates a bit of room for himself, goes up for a shot, contested shot. Juancho is not just like, okay, well, this is what you're going to do. I'm just going to, maybe go back on defense, whatever. He races to the rim. It's an air ball, saves it. And then Coloco misses the putback. But that is just being a pro.
Yeah. That's a mentality right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that other players should be looking at and saying, no matter what, there's a way for me to impact the game. Right? When people talk about, oh, it's not just scoring, right? Again, it's not just about getting a shot. It's like you can go get it off the glass. You can go set a screen for someone. You can do whatever, right? And find a way to impact the game. So I think finding the best moments for all those other guys to contribute is probably the biggest positive that came out of that game for Nick Nurse.
Yeah, and to that point, I think it's also sometimes about finding a way to allow some of those players with some pretty big shortcomings, finding ways to work with them so that you limit those shortcomings and you highlight their strengths, right? And I thought last night, Nick Nurse using his own coverage for significant portions of the game, but especially when the bench was on, was excellent. Because look, the bench was not trotting out their great defenders, right? It was, you know what, Thad Young, he's older, right? Malachi, he's really small, right? And Christian, who knows? Sometimes he's obviously very foul prone, but generally when he's not fouling, he actually is a pretty decent defender. But to make that group work, Juancho's in that group. He's not the quickest guy either. How do you sort of hide that shortcoming while also then getting the positives from those other things that you're mentioning? And zone was the answer.
Yep.
Right? I thought Nick did a great job of sort of like finding something that worked. To be honest, I think to the point with Malachi, he hasn't been playing a lot, and now he's playing a ton. To me, I thought yesterday was just a good matchup for him in terms of the fact that the Knicks do play 3 small guards in the rotation.
Yep.
I think even 4. I guess Derrick Rose was out there, McBride was out there, Quickly was out there, and then Brunson. So you had lots of matchups for Malachi to guard, but do you feel like he could still play this level of minutes or still come in and give you this level of production, even if they don't have small guards on the floor? And is zone a part of the answer to that?
The zone is definitely a part of that in terms of just hiding the weaknesses.
Okay.
But I think if Malachi can get minutes against Philly, I don't see why that can't be the case in other matchups, right?
Mhm.
Like even that Philly matchup, Tyrese Maxey wasn't there,
Right.
right?
Okay.
So I think the way he's playing, absolutely, there's a case to be made for him to just continue to get consistent minutes. The complete freedom with which he's shooting the ball.
Mhm.
I think that's a really big thing for me right now when you look across this team and their comfort shooting the ball. Malachi is someone that right now you would put near the top of the list and say, hey, he is someone that is ready to get the shot up every single time. And the way he's shooting the ball this season, he shot it very well. That is something you have to keep in the lineup.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing,
Or
too.
in the rotation, rather.
Low key, when you look at the stat sheet, the only guy who's shooting above average from 3 this season on the Raptors is Malachi Flynn.
Yep.
And I think that this is a big difference for him, and it's a big step in his career if he's able to maintain this, because obviously we're talking about a week here, right? But this is the first big chance that he's had since the tanking portion of Tampa, where he's giving consistent minutes to play in close games, in games that really matter. Now, we'll see when the injuries start to sort of subside a little bit if he's still going to get those same chances. But still, he is getting this chance to play. And before, I always thought when he came into the game, he was a little bit more hesitant. The jumper wasn't falling to the same rate that it was this year. But it's clear to me that he's put in the effort and the work to stay ready when he comes in off the bench. I've never heard Malachi complain once, in 3 years here. And it's not like he's been getting tons of chances. If anything, he's been called out more times than he's been actually given chances. And now when he's given this chance, he's actually playing well. So salute to him. I just think that it takes guys like that to sort of come in and just be totally committed to the win to get results done. And then, of course, I think the bigger thing, too, is not a huge coincidence and not a surprise at all. OG Anunoby coming back the last 2 games, Raptors holding opponents to a reasonable amount where they can actually compete so that Pascal's brilliance can sort of carry them over the line. What did you think of OG Anunoby's defense?
Yeah, just amazing, right? Like when you pair the Philly game with this game, you look at the possessions where he's defending Joel Embiid, defending James Harden. Here he's getting possessions going up against Julius Randle, going up against RJ Barrett. And so I think that package is something that very few people in the league can offer. And it's a huge boon to the Raptors. It's a huge boon to Pascal Siakam because let's face it, when say, for example, they go up against Brooklyn, Pascal not only has to carry the offensive load, he's got to defend Kevin Durant. Right? And
who's able to do both of those in the league? Like, honestly, right?
Yeah. So you've alleviated the load on Pascal when you look at the two-way commitment that he has to make. And now OG Anunoby, the three-point shot looked good against Philly, not so much in this one, but again, that consistency with the defense is there, and it just increases the margin for error, which has been razor thin for the Raptors.
Yeah, no, exactly. And look, those are things where there's points where across the board, the guys are going to need to get more consistent, and that includes guys like Pascal as well, and guys like Fred and the leaders of the team and OG as well. But yeah, I mean, I just think that having him back, you just miss him in all the moments where it's like he's got a jump ball against Mitchell Robinson, who's 7 foot tall, if
Yep.
not taller than that, and a pretty good jumper, and OG wins the loose ball. You know,
Yeah.
like that's a huge possession that he's just won for you, or like he's like pressuring the inbounder and he's got his hand up, and so they got to throw the pass over the top, and they airmail the pass,
It goes out
and it
of
goes
bounds.
out of bounds. Those are not stats that go up in his stat sheet, but those are huge possessions won for you. And of course, the big play at the end where he blocks RJ and the Raptors go the other way. Pascal pushes the break to Fred for 3. Finally, Fred makes a clutch 3. We know he can do that, but he just hasn't done it this
Yeah.
season. I don't remember another clutch 3 from Fred this year. So, yeah, I mean, that's your big threes with combining together.
And the funny thing with OG is someone might look at the box score and be like, "Oh, he didn't have a steal in this game."
Yeah.
But you actually look at some of the deflections and the plays that he had.
Mm-hmm.
It's just unfortunate that they didn't translate into steals, but he was mucking up the Knicks offense,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
he was still very much applying ball pressure, knocking the ball out. Okay, yeah, sure, the Knicks may have recovered it, but all of a sudden now you're having to restart from near the half court line,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
All of those things are part of what the Raptors want to do at their best defensively, and he is a central figure in that.
Yeah. Fred VanVleet. I would say, well, okay, first off, what would you grade his game from last night? So he had 28 points on 24 shots. Only one fewer shot than Pascal, by the way. I know Pascal took 18 free throws, so whatever. He obviously used more attempts, but still, that's strange. But anyway, 28 points on 24 shots. What are your thoughts?
I'll probably give him like a B minus.
Yeah, okay.
I think he was solid. I think he provided just enough that was needed to make sure Pascal's night didn't go wasted again.
Yep.
That 3 was huge to
Massive.
put them up 4. But there's still, it feels a bit, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, but over the course of the season, obviously it started out with Fred saying, okay, I'll take a back seat. We'll see.
Yeah, that is true. No, you're right. That's true.
We'll see, how the offense kind of who takes the ascendancy between Scottie, OG, obviously Pascal's at the top. And, what was it, 12 points a game that he was averaging, really low usage. And
Just to interrupt you, his first 3 games, he took 11 shots, 9 shots, and 11 shots.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's 31 shots in 3 games. In a whole week, he had 24 last night.
Yeah.
Keep going, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's how he started out. Then he got hurt. Then he came back and it's like, you know what? I'm at my best when I'm aggressive. So I'm just going to be aggressive.
Yeah, yeah.
And he came back and he had some really high scoring outputs.
Right.
Was
Against
really
Chicago.
effective. Yeah.
When Pascal was out, yeah.
Yeah. And then, he struggled with the 3 ball. I believe he's at about 26% shooting the 3 in December. And so he struggled with that big time, which takes away a lot from his game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's sort of trying to find himself. And he's at that point. Like last night was one where he was just saying, okay, I just got to shoot my way out of it. And
I think he also liked the matchup too, just like how Malachi liked the matchup with small guards.
Yeah.
Fred saw guys he could actually look eye to eye with for once, and he's like, "It's time for me to dominate."
So the most exciting part of that was that he was taking people off the bounce, right? That he was getting all the way to the basket, especially early, like really asserting himself, getting layup after layup, and just creating that kind of rim pressure that the Raptors really, in general, lack.
Yeah.
Right. That was the most encouraging thing. So that is something we were talking about Malachi against small guards in general. Fred, this was a great situation for him going up against small guards. I don't know how often we'll see that ability to attack off the bounce, but it being presented to him and him taking advantage of it is definitely a big plus.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think he was aggressive, which is what you did need from him, because as good as even if Pascal scores 50 plus, he still needs a running mate, right? So I think Fred did that for him. However, my thing with it was just like in the fourth quarter, and I understand Fred had to play the whole quarter. He was on the floor. Him and OG in that 2-man game was like the whole offense while Pascal sat, which is exactly what you want to see, honestly, right? But Fred took 9 shots in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And some of those were good shots, like the transition 3, and not just because he made it, but that's just a good shot. I want him taking that shot every single time. Pascal's going to find him every single time for that kind of look. It's absolutely the right play, right? He made another shot earlier as well. But it's just some of those attempts, like I think it was a pull-up 3 off a drop coverage. Again, another shot you want to see Fred take. But the drives where he's hitting the underside of the rim, or the pull-up threes where it's an air ball, and it's just like in a fourth quarter, like you just want to see aggression is good, but I think in the fourth quarter, especially, like discretion is even better,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And so maybe you look at some of those attempts and cut back on those. It didn't hurt them last night. It really didn't. But I think on a different night, you do want to see that come around. I think for me, looking at Fred, the biggest thing I'm looking for every single night in the box score is what did he shoot from three? Was it close to 40% or is it close to 20%?
Right.
Right? Because if it's 40 for the Raptors, that's pretty good. That's all you really need from Fred. The driving and all that stuff, that's almost secondary to me. What I need to see is the catch and shoot threes drop for him because that's what the team needs. Catch and shoot three for him, making those is like the need for Christian Koloko to finish a dunk around the basket off a dump off, right? That's Fred's version of a dump off. He needs to knock those down. We've seen him knock it down at an elite level last year. He's just got to get back to that. And if he does, there's no problems. Like if he did that, we'd be talking about a 2-game win streak because Philly, they would have won against Philly.
Yeah.
Right?
No question.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think B's like roughly right. You know, I think defensively he was disruptive as well. So you got to give him credit there. Obviously, you don't ever question his effort on that front. But
yeah, it's relative to like I'm grading relative to what we know Fred is at his absolute best.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
Yeah,
and you know when I say that 3-point shot is so important to him, it's because of what it opens up in terms of his drive game. Right? Like you when you think about what was basically a pivot point in his career after the NBA Finals, right? What was really impressive was he could have just rested on his laurels because of the way the conference finals went and the way the NBA Finals went, but he saw how he struggled against Orlando's length, against Philadelphia's length after that, and said, "Hey, this is something I need to address."
Yep.
And so he actually expanded his range. Like before, he would take threes like pretty close to the 3-point line. Then we saw him come back in 2019-20, and we were starting to see him get closer to the logo, right? And then when he knocked those down consistently enough, you saw defenders have to shift, right? And so that vertical spacing now increased, and now he had more of a runway to the basket, right? And it was opening up so many more things for him. And without that shot, I think it just takes away not only the obvious like catch and shoot and just pull up threes that he's taking, but also that ability to manipulate within the arc.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, we're going to take a quick break right here. I've been your host, Willu. That's Vivek Jacob. You're listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Welcome back to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wim Luke. Today we joined by Vivek Jacob and producer Derek Brandeo as we continue to discuss the future of 7. No, I'm kidding. And the only future I'm trying to think about is what's happening with the Toronto Raptors and just honestly, how can they continue to build off of that nice win, right? It's been so, honestly, a little depressing being in the studio all the time, just being like, hey, this is wrong. We could move this guy for this pick or whatever. It's like, ooh, OG can go for a lot. Let's, maybe consider it. I'm like, look, that's all cute, but I want to see wins. Ultimately, that's just where I am as a Raptor fan. My only agenda is just like, let's see the team win and how can they contribute to it.
Yep.
And so, you know what, even after a game like that, because it wasn't like the Raptors played perfectly. If they did, they wouldn't have needed that many points from Pascal. He would have chilled in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
That game was still close, and there were some mistakes made. And I think for me, looking at the game, it was just, I guess I wasn't too surprised because we've seen it before, but I was confused by what Scottie Barnes was doing. My big takeaway was just focus. The focus wasn't there from the start, and it wasn't there in the fourth quarter when Nick put him in for those 2 minutes and he made those defensive errors. What was your take on how Scottie Barnes played last night? And how do you even explain it? I know you wrote a whole piece about this. So
yeah, I mean, I think from the focus part of it, for me, it's become a bit of a barometer in his level of engagement when you see him get the ball in the paint.
Yep.
And he's not even thinking about the basket.
Okay.
Like against Philly, in this game against the Knicks, there were multiple occasions where he gets the ball and you think about those misses early on, right? Where he got the ball and first thing he was just looking to kick it back out. And it was like, you're right under the basket.
Yeah.
And then he realized it.
Yeah.
And then he missed like 3 layups in a row.
Yeah.
But I think it's just having that aggressiveness, that mindset that, hey, this is where I do my damage.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
And I think the encouraging signs that we saw a little while ago where he had a good 4 or 5 game stretch where I did put out that story, right? It was, for me, he was going back to being the player he kind of was last season
Hmm.
and focusing on what made him special last season, right? And really, getting it off the glass, incessantly attacking the paint and, you know, pushing in transition off of rebounds. Those are the things that we associated with Scottie Barnes last year. And this year, he's being asked to be a different type of player. He's being given more challenges because of the success he had last season. And there's been some growing pains through that.
Yeah.
But again, the fluctuations in intensity, that is what mainly I kind of hold him accountable for.
Yeah.
I've said this before on this show. Like, if he has a bad night shooting the ball or whatever it may be, I don't worry as much about that as I do the process.
Yeah.
Right. And there are nights where the process just has not looked good at all for Scottie Barnes.
Yeah, I just thought yesterday's game was just disappointing in the sense that I felt like you saw it right away from the game. Again, we're not here to talk about the 1 of 10 from shooting, and it's not us shielding the rookie or anything like that. Whatever, it happens. Like some of those were bad reads going up against Mitchell Robinson. Obviously, he was a really good shot blocker. Like stuff like that will happen, or he's open for a catch and shoot three, he misses it. Again, that's stuff that's gonna happen. You can accept those, right? Because at least he's taking the shots. For me, it's like defensively is the focus and the effort there. The Raptors played a lot of zone last night, and you saw possessions where he lost Robinson, who's his assignment, for wide open dunks. The one thing you cannot give up in a zone is a wide open dunk. You're literally walled off the whole paint. So how are you going to lose the largest man in the building for a dunk, right? And this is the first quarter. We're talking about RJ Barrett's open to the three-point line. He's not committing to the closeout, even though Scottie was on Robinson, but Pascal came over to help. So now it's a switch. You got to go out to the three-point line, close out on RJ. And I made a whole video about this, and just to highlight the point, because again, I don't want to make these sort of statements without actual evidence and just the video to sort of explain it. But he's not closing out to RJ, and he's slow to close out. The next play, he's guarding Randall in the post. He has his hands down the whole time, and it's like, Randall loves mid-range jumpers, and it's not just like, well, it's good defense to force him to the mid-range jumper. No, it's not a good defense to give a guy his preferred shot, no matter what, right?
Yep.
And that's Julius Randle you're talking about right there. So there's possessions like that where he's done the hard part, which is to contain Jalen Brunson off the dribble. Then he forces him towards the baseline. Malachi comes over with the help. Now there's a trap. You're trapping him along the baseline, almost in the corner. And instead of just using his positioning and keeping his hands up and trapping Brunson into potentially calling a timeout, into potentially throwing a bad pass for a turnover, he instead, Scottie puts two hands on Brunson, and it's a foul, and it bails him out of that whole scenario, right? So things like that where the focus just has to get better from the start of the game, but especially in the fourth quarter when Nick Nurse puts you back into the game. You can't, have possessions where you let quickly knock down a wide open three, even though you just misread the situation and ducked into the paint instead of staying at home in the corner. And then, of course, after that, not boxing out Randall, right? And that's not to say he didn't do good things in this game. Thought he had a really nice pick and roll sequence with Pascal for a bucket. Thought he was able to find VanVleet rolling to the rim, which is super random. Great vision there from Scottie to find Fred in a very unorthodox position. I thought there were a couple of box outs in the first quarter where he was very focused on that, which was good to see because again, he was guarding against a bigger player. But you just need to see that with more consistency, especially because on the road, the trends are kind of stark right now. When Scottie's playing at home, 17.7 points per game on 51% shooting 38% from three. He's giving you 8 rebounds and 5 assists, and the Raptors obviously have a pretty good home record, right? So you're talking about 18, 8, and 5. If that was what he was averaging on the season, nobody would be complaining, and especially because if that led to wins. On the road, Scottie Barnes is now averaging 10.9 points per game on 36% shooting from the field, 23% shooting from three, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. So the numbers drop across the board, but his points are basically half, and his percentages really drop. What do you think is the point? What do you think is the reason for such a big difference between home and away for Scottie? Is this just part of being young? What is it?
I think that's all you can really chalk it up to, because beyond that, it's really inexplicable, right?
Yeah.
Like when you look at the lack of intensity that he's had at times, the lack of focus. You mentioned his defensive stance. There's several occasions where you look at him and he is flat-footed.
Yeah.
Like he's standing upright, just not in a defensive stance.
Oh, actually, can you explain something to me? Have you seen guys in other teams, maybe even other leagues, where they fake the charge? You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, okay, obviously sometimes you just take the charge,
Yeah.
right? When a guy's driving in towards you and you just step in or you slide underneath. Obviously, we've seen every version of this with Kyle Lowry around in the last
Yeah.
couple of years. I haven't seen a guy bait the charge, as in the guy is driving it at the 3-point line and you're already like in the paint doing the charge pose. And I'm just like, what is the point? Because you're just taking yourself out of the play almost. It doesn't,
Yeah.
it's not like I see it happen and defenders they're like, oh, he's gonna go for a charge, I'm gonna go for a shot, and then Scottie puts his hands up and blocks him. You don't see that very often. So what's the process behind that, you think?
Yeah, I think that's
I just haven't seen other guys
him
do that.
just trying to outsmart the opponent. I don't think it's come off. And so I think that's something that he's just tried. And the other thing I actually genuinely wonder about, as someone who won Rookie of the Year, right? How much is he thinking about, I want to show how much I've evolved and changed from last season? Like, oh, people thought I was so great doing that. Like, look at me adding, a 3-point shot. I want to show that I've added different things, even though it hasn't panned out, right? Like the 3-point shot has kind of fallen off a cliff. In October, 6 games, shot 52%.
Oh man, that Atlanta game on Halloween when he was knocking down all those threes, it was looking amazing.
Yeah. November, 26%. December, 11 games so far, 24%. So the 3-point shot hasn't been there. And so, we saw him taking a lot of those mid-rangers early. I wonder how much of that was just like, hey, I want to show that I've become a complete player, that I've added all these things to my repertoire, as opposed to, the mindset of, these are things that made me amazing last season. I'm going to double down on it and be just flat out unstoppable at those things.
Right.
That is almost like my peak version of Scottie for this season. Like, I would love to just see him go all in on that, being like, hey, you know what? The development hasn't really been there in those other aspects of my game as much as I would like. I'm going to double down on these strengths, because guess what? With Pascal playing at this level, that might be good enough.
Sure. Yeah. It was good enough last year. Like, that's the thing, right? It was good enough last year. And I think for me, thinking about this with Scottie too, is like, I agree with you. I think obviously there are the what you work on and sort of what your expectations were coming into the season versus what is happening right now. I'm sure just like how fans look at Scottie and was like, I'm really excited in you. I see a lot of potential in you. I see a lot of flashes, right? That Brooklyn game in the fourth quarter, wow.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, where is that consistently when people feel a little bit disappointed? I'm sure Scottie feels disappointed as well. The thing for me is just like, no matter what and how you're playing, I need the effort and the intensity and the focus to be there defensively at all times. Because that's what ultimately led Nick to end up benching him, was because of that, right? You can't come into the game and the coach tells you, like, look, you're in the game. No matter what your role is offensively, you still need to defend.
Yeah.
And it was disappointing. And these are games where Scottie is capable of being a very, very good defensive player. These are not plays that he's not capable of making, right? Even sometimes when I look at Fred, I'm like, there are some physical limitations that he just physically can't get to.
Right.
And that's a real limitation that you have to work around. But with Scottie, you don't see that. Instead, you see things like the focus isn't there, or the reads are late, or the positioning is poor. Those are things for a younger player to learn how to improve upon those things so that you're on the floor enough that your offense comes around as well.
Yeah. And then I think with Scottie, when you look at Vision 6'9" as a whole, you are only as switchable as the positions you can actually guard.
Yeah.
Right? And I think on the whole, when you look at him defending the point of attack, it has not worked out, right? And
but then why does Nick keep using him there?
Because that's what they want him to be.
Okay.
I think
so
that has been I think that has been part of what we've seen this season, right? Like we've seen Scottie consistently be put in positions that maybe we envision, or the team envisions him being one day. And it's like he just has to get these reps in to understand it, right? Like, think about last season, right? Those first few months for Precious Achiuwa and how much of a struggle that looked, right? And it was like, well, we have a vision of what he can be, And he's not going to get there without going through these reps. It's not magically just going to happen one
Right.
day just because he turns age 25 or 26.
Mhm.
Like he has to get the reps in. And so I think that's part of what's happening here, where they're saying, we see Scottie defending at the point of attack long term.
Mhm.
We see Scottie, being the point guard. We see Scottie doing all these different things, and he's getting those reps at doing it. Now, the consistency of effort is what we've brought up multiple times. And that's where that engagement level, showing guys the right way, communicating on screens, making the right rotation at the right time.
Mhm. Yeah.
Those are all things that you can hold him accountable to, right? This isn't, and again, we talk about the defensive struggles, right? I think most people, including myself, expected the team to hit the ground running defensively this year because you went through the growing pains last year
Exactly.
for those 2-3 months, and then it clicked, and it was like, oh, this is what they can be at their best. They went through those pains and they sorted it out, and now they know what they have to do. And so that's where you expected the team to hit the ground running this year, and it's like they're starting from scratch all over again.
Yep. Yeah. Fair. You want to end on a positive?
Pascal Siakam?
Okay, yeah. Let's go back to Pascal Siakam. I know we already talked about that at the top, but so I was thinking about it, okay? Pascal Siakam this season is averaging 27 points per game, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, shooting 49% from the field. Okay? And then I was thinking about it because he continues to go up these record charts for the Raptors at least, right? And now he's like the 5th Raptor now to have 50-point games, right? It's him, it's DeMar, it's Vince, it's Fred, and then randomly Terrence Ross. But, shout out Terrence Ross. Okay. How many other top seasons have there been in Raptors franchise history that are better than what Pascal Siakam is currently on pace for? And this is the list. I'm going to give you the list, okay? I'll come up with 5.
But before you do that,
Yeah?
Just quickly about the numbers that you said about Pascal for this season.
Yeah.
The only players that are averaging 26, 8, and 6 are LeBron James and Luka Doncic.
Okay. Good company.
Pretty all right.
Everybody around 500 though, unfortunately. maybe heliocentrism isn't working. Okay. Yeah, sorry, 26 points. Sorry, I can't give him the 27. Okay, so this season, Pascal 26, 9, 7, 49% shooting. The other top seasons from some of the top players of all time in this franchise. 2001 Vince Carter, 28 points per game, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, shot 46% from the field. Obviously, was knocking down a lot of threes as well. The Raptors won 47 games. He made the All-Star team and second team All-NBA. Pretty damn good. That was peak Vince.
Yeah.
Okay. Peak Chris Bosh, 2010, 24 points per game, 11 rebounds, 2 assists. Wasn't passing much in that one. 52% shooting from the field. Super money from mid-range. Raptors won 40 games. He made All-Star. Actually didn't make All-NBA in this season.
Yeah, funnily enough, he made it 06-07.
Right. So you can argue that was a slightly better season, but this one just statistically 24, 11, and 2 and 52% shooting. Pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Kyle Lowry, undisputed for me, 2016 season, 22 points per game, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, 43% shooting from the field. Obviously knocked down a ton of threes. Raptors won 56 games, which was a franchise record at the time. Kyle Lowry made the All-Star team, started the All-Star game, was third team All-NBA that season. Tremendous year from Kyle Lowry. Peak DeMar DeRozan, in my opinion, for the Raptors at least, was 2017. 27 points per game, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 47% shooting. Raptors won 53 games that season. DeMar makes the All-Star game, and he's third team All-NBA. And then, of course, this is probably the most undisputed best season in Raptors franchise history. Everyone knows what I'm talking about here. But 2019, Kawhi Leonard, 27 points per game, 7 rebounds, 3 assists because he didn't pass, 49% shooting from the field. Raptors won 58 games and obviously won the championship. He won Finals MVP. Kawhi was named All-Star that year and second team All-NBA. So when you look at that list, and obviously we don't know how the rest of the season goes for Pascal. He's got to maintain this for the rest of the year. We'll see if the Raptors make the playoffs. We'll see what they do in the playoffs. We'll see what his I'm just going to assume Pascal is going to make All-Star because people have eyes.
Yeah.
And I'm going to assume he makes All-NBA because people have eyes. But this list, when you're thinking about that list, and Pascal giving you 26, 9, and 7 right now on 49% shooting, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's up there with those seasons. I think when you have those caliber seasons, the general separator that people go to is how many games the team won.
Yep, I agree.
And that's where he needs some help right now because he's doing all he can.
Yeah.
I think if you were to just look at the film and say, hey, what is this level of Pascal versus, that 16 version of Lowry versus that version of DeMar or Vince, I think that becomes a very interesting conversation because he's doing it all, right? Like, I think impact-wise, again, you talk about that third quarter. It's a stretch where the Knicks kind of take command. They take a 2-point lead, and Pascal single-handedly punches back and gives the team a 7-point lead to go into the fourth. Like, that's big-time impact, right? And so if you're watching the film, you can recognize that Pascal is truly an elite player. This is not like just, someone putting up big numbers on a bad team.
But I've never seen a more ethical 50 ball in my life because it wasn't like a guy hit 10 threes.
Yeah.
Right? Which is not to say that when Fred hit the franchise record 54 with 11 threes, that was just lucky. Of course, it takes a ton of skill to do that. But this wasn't a guy got hot. This was a guy cooked the team for the whole game and finished with 52.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I think he's been absolutely sensational. I think defenses don't have answers to him, right? I think that is the big separating factor if you were to maybe compare him to, say, his own like 2019-20 season. That ability to consistently hit from the mid-range and then to completely just eviscerate everything in the paint. Like, he's
everything, man.
Within 3 feet of the basket, he's at 77-78% this season.
Damn.
Like, his career best before this was about 71, which was already really high. And to be close to 80% now?
It doesn't make any sense, man.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And so I think that mid-range where, last season he was at about 50% from that 3 to 10 range. This season it's a bit down at 47. But that's still a healthy number. Outside of that, the 10 to 16, he's up at about 45%. That's a healthy number. If he can maintain that, then defenses are really left with nothing because he's knocking down the 3 ball often enough too, right?
Yeah. Like when Randall was dropping back again, why would anybody drop back against Pascal? But he's knocking all these shots down, and yeah, man, I think it's that and the playmaking as well because he's generating so many of these advantages, and that's why when I'm looking at it, it's better than the best season Chris Bosh ever gave the Toronto Raptors for me. Yeah. Pascal Siakam's already ahead of Chris Bosh for me on the franchise list. That might be slightly controversial. That man won a title for us. It's probably better than the best season DeMar DeRozan has had for the Toronto Raptors before.
Yes. But, I mean, because you have to factor both sides of the ball.
Yes, I agree. And again, DeMar didn't play make to this level that Pascal's at right now with the Toronto Raptors, save for 2018. I still don't know if it's better than Vince. I don't think any season's going to touch that Kawhi one because he finished it off. Or Kyle. But the fact that he's having this type of season, don't waste it. Bobby Webster, Masai Ujiri, don't waste this, please. Okay, you hear the numbers: 26, 9, 7, 49% shooting, 52 in the Garden. Raptors finally win again. Big V back in the studio again because the All-Star or because the World Cup is over. Appreciate you.
Good times, man. Great to be back.
Yeah, man. All right, that does it for us today. I've been your host, Will Lou, and you've been listening to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe, please rate and review the show. Reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel, airing live on Sportsnet 360, Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. However, we will be off air for the next week as we are going away for the holidays. So thanks again for Vivek Jacob for joining us in the studio.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays, everybody. Thanks to board producer Derek Brandale and Jennifer Rolnick for helping us with the YouTube stream. And we'll be back to talk to you soon.